He was ashamed that his father worked as a delivery man. A couple of days later he regretted it. Austin, a 32-year-old man, lived in Ohio and had a commendable career, most of which he dreamed of when he was in school. Though his childhood was that easy and he had to face difficult times when he was a kid, suddenly a gush of memory ran through his mind and his eyes were filled with tears. As a child, Austin didn't know much about his mother except the fact that she passed away right after his birth, which was complicated by extensive bleeding. Thanks to his father Charles, who didn't abandon his child and did every possible thing so his son didn't feel deprived of anything. But there was a problem. As the family didn't have much money, it became the reason for Charles spending most of his time at work. Not only Charles but even Austin faced difficulties at daycare. Though it wasn't that obvious yet, but when the boy started schooling things got much worse. Looking at the clothes that his classmates were wearing, Austin immediately realized that his father couldn't get him the same type of pairs. Charles, Austin's father, worked as a delivery person for the hardware store, spending his days transporting goods door to door. Despite the fact that this job required hard physical labor, the pay was definitely lower than one would expect. In fact, the money Charles earned was barely enough for food, but he still had to pay rent and buy school supplies for Austin. 10-year-old Austin was proud dad about his father and knew he was doing an important job. Unfortunately, but his classmates didn't think the same way and often troubled him, calling him a beggar's son. The strangest thing was that Austin never told his classmate about his father's actual profession. One day one of his classmates, Kevin, who belonged to a wealthy family, publicly bragged that his father was the owner of a large estate company. At that time Austin pulled his head into his shoulders and tried to disappear into the crowd of his peers. He was ashamed to confess in front of his classmates that his father worked as an ordinary deliveryman. Till now things were going in Austin's favor until it was announced that Father's Day is arriving and children need to bring their fathers to the school. When the announcement was done, Kevin noticed Austin, who was deliberately hiding, and started to ask questions that would make Austin more nervous. Kevin asked, "What's your father's job, like a pizza delivery guy or a janitor?" Austin shuddered, but there was nowhere to hide and he decided to take a desperate step. "My father is a businessman and he has several farms all over the state," Austin lied without batting an eye. "Tell us more lies that he has some kind of car as a dad," Kevin exclaimed, not even attempting to hide the contempt in his voice. Getting much desperate, Austin answered, "Of course he has a car, and not just one." Soon after the boy's words, the peers gasped admiringly, imagining a whole fleet of vehicles which apparently Austin's father had. But there was only Kevin who didn't hide his distrust and was sure that Austin was lying. Only 1 week was left before the Father's Day celebration for Austin. This meant only one thing: his deceit would soon be revealed. The realization that he would become the laughingstock of the whole school tormented the boy, forcing him to look fearfully at the calendar. Austin was obviously miserably unable to stop thinking about the ridicule he would have to soon endure, and that's when something unexpected happened. Looking at their tense face, Charles called him and asked whether he is facing any problems at school or so. Soon after hearing his father's words, Austin started crying. Charles was confused and didn't know what was happening. He hugged Austin and said there is nothing in the world that can't be solved. It was that when Austin told him all the backstory, hearing what his son's problem was, Charles's face changed immediately and he started thinking. Finally, the day arrived when everyone was going to know the truth. Austin's heart was beating faster than usual. Many of Austin's classmates has already arrived, but Charles was still missing. All the while Kevin stared at Austin with undisguised. Just when everyone had already decided that Charles wasn't coming, a Dodge SUV with tinted glass windows pulled up to the school parking lot. Then the car's door opened and a man dressed in a business suit stepped out. It was Charles, Austin was very happy that his dad managed to find a way. Dad and Austin rushed to his father. Charles differently made a splash with the entrance and Kevin was especially impressed. Charles behaved very well as if nothing has happened. When the celebration ended, Austin and Charles said goodbye and headed toward the car. Austin had many questions running through his head. He asked Dad, "Are we going home in this car?" Charles said, "Please get in, I'll answer all your questions." When they left, Charles finally told Austin from where he got the car. The truth was going to get revealed. Charles borrowed the car from his boss for whom he had been working for years. Charles, being a loyal and a favorite employee of the boss, got him easily to ask for a favor. When they reached to return the car to the boss, he greeted Austin and Charles and asked how their celebration went. Looking at Austin's happiness, both Charles and his boss were happy. Everything went well as planned, and that's when Austin admired his dad and thought of his greatness. Remembering the treasured memory, Austin today feels very proud about his dad's deed and would always be grateful towards him.